Peace, love, many blessings to you. This video is something that's been on my heart for a while now that I just haven't really been able to talk about in depth, mostly because I've still been experiencing the effects of it. But yeah, this video is about some of the risks that can actually happen when working with the amazing teacher plant ayahuasca. Now, if you're familiar with ayahuasca, which I'm sure you are if you're checking out this video, you probably have a lot of information on it already. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I am going to explain a little bit about what it is. Ayahuasca, depending on who you ask, is known as a teacher plant, a plant medicine, or a psychotropic plant, or a psychedelic drug. You pick whatever it is to you. I like to speak of ayahuasca as a teacher plant and a plant medicine and a spirit who communicates directly with us as people who choose to work with ayahuasca on a spiritual level through visions, dreams, and just unconventional ways of communication. Back in March, I went to my second ayahuasca and San Pedro retreat at a beautiful place called Casa del Sol in Vilcabamba, Loja, Ecuador. It's a beautiful mountain town, amazing place, man. And the shamans there are just top-notch, so caring and gentle and loving and knowledgeable. But that's not why we're here. We're not doing a review video on Casa del Sol, but please check them out if you're interested and looking for someone to facilitate a high quality ayahuasca or San Pedro experience. Casa del Sol is the place to go. So I sat with ayahuasca. We do 2 ayahuasca ceremonies per retreat. So this was the 3rd time that I sat with this beautiful plant medicine, and the vision that I received, the first 2 times I didn't receive a vision at all. I had some sort of like communication where I could feel like this teacher like gently guiding my thoughts, or really like challenging the thoughts that I was having, like my ego-based thoughts, my self-doubt. This teacher would just question those. That was it. So that happened the first 2 times that I worked with ayahuasca. This 3rd time, I saw everything. Like, I felt like I was shown just so many different aspects of reality that it almost felt like I saw it all. You know what I mean? So if you want to hear a little bit more about that experience, you can check out the video. It's going to be linked below in the caption below this video. Check that out. I go into great detail about that whole vision, how beautiful it was, how I interpreted the vision and whatnot. So please enjoy that if you're interested. So that retreat came to a conclusion. It was a successful retreat. That experience, although it was so beautiful, working with ayahuasca that night, it was also one of the most terrifying things that I've ever experienced. The reason for that is because during the vision, I had this experience in the vision, or part of the vision, that felt like a death experience or something. I don't think that it was an ego death happening, or maybe it was like a partial ego death. But what it felt like to me was that I was actually waking up into another person's body who was on their deathbed, and that person was kind of letting go of the dream of being me, of being Kashai, and everything that comes with being Kashai, like my family, my mom, my dad, my daughter, my sister, my nephew, my aunts, uncles, and my cousins, and my friends, like all of the things that are so important in my life. I felt like I was losing those things in this moment, but I also felt like I was truly understanding that I was waking up into this other being, and that all of that didn't matter because it was just a dream, and that there was no way out. So I surrendered to that, and I didn't die. Didn't wake up, nothing. I just continued to be me, so I was really thankful for that, obviously. But I never felt confident in my experience since then. Once that happened, I was literally ready to leave the retreat and go back home that day. Like, I shouldn't say that day because, the ayahuasca ceremonies are overnight. So once morning hit, like, I was ready and I was seriously considering leaving the retreat that day. I didn't. I decided to stick it out right until the end. And, in some ways I'm glad I did, but in other ways I'm like, it didn't really matter. I would have rather just come home to my family. Because I was in such a state of like fear and confusion, and just feeling like I needed to be close with my family and kind of let go of all of the situations that families have, like the trauma that we kind of cause each other unintentionally, unknowingly, over the years, and just be present with them and share some love with them. And that's what I was doing pretty much since I came back to Bermuda. So pretty much ever since that night, I was questioning what was going on with my actual reality. That questioning just became more and more intense after I got back home, and I continued to question to the point where it caused deep conflict within my actual belief and perception of reality. So that really became quite scary because I couldn't ground myself in my experience as Kashai, because I felt like I needed proof, like I needed to know what was real. And I couldn't find any proof about what was real. Like I spoke with my shamans, they gave me some things to do, like I talked to other people, I did some research, and you just can't outright prove reality. You can't do it. So that just made things worse for me, to the point where one night I was meditating, and I had just got off the conversation with a really good friend of mine. It was a beautiful conversation. I had just gotten off the phone, I should say, with a friend of mine. After a beautiful conversation, kind of one of the last things we had touched on was, she had said to me that someone told her that when the ego really dies, like, that person disappears because there is no need for the body anymore, and stuff like that. And at that point, like I said, I was really questioning what was real, and then this that concept hit me because I knew that, like, my ego wasn't solid anymore. And I felt like what I saw in my vision was so intense. Like, I realized the God aspect of myself, and I realized how powerful that I can be, and that being in this reality is really a choice. But it also felt like something deeper than my consciousness was trying to choose to transcend this reality. And after I hung up the phone with her, I tried to meditate a little bit just to kind of ease my mind. And what happened was this meditation became so deep so quickly, and I experienced something that I've never experienced in meditation before. My breathing actually just became automated. I generally am somewhat focused on my breath, and I breathe intentionally in my meditations. My consciousness was not operating my breathing. My breathing was like operating itself. It became extremely smooth and rhythmic, to the point that I could have just never done that on my own, with my own basic knowledge of myself or anything that I've done in the past. Like, I've never been able to achieve that kind of breath. So when that happened, what else was happening was, like, I started to have body sensations that reminded me of how I felt during my ayahuasca experience. And it's that sensation of going into the high, let's say, but being really present in the medicine, where the colors are flowing and the shapes are going and the patterns, it's looking like a kaleidoscope, and you're seeing things like sacred geometry and all sorts of stuff. The sensations that I was experiencing while I was experiencing that vision with ayahuasca, that the sensation started to take over my body, and I could feel the energy in my body like lifting upwards, which is how it felt while I was working with ayahuasca. My energy literally felt like it left my body and went into this space of pure consciousness where I was experiencing the vision. That happened again in a regular ass meditation with no medicine. The colors and stuff didn't happen because I freaked out. I had a panic attack, like on the spot. Like I did not know what to expect. My thought was that, okay, I let go of so much of my ego in the vision that if I let go of any more, I'm not gonna exist. Like I'm gonna die or disappear or something. So I pulled myself out of that experience and just started to panic, had a panic attack, had a hard time sleeping that night, and eventually I decided to, just kind of start talking to people, because I got to a point where I was so afraid that I wasn't going to be able to experience life as myself anymore, that I just really wanted to be around the people who were closest to me. So I didn't have the ability to focus on anything else. I only had the ability to focus on keeping my energy in my body space, because for over a week it felt out of my body. I could perform basic tasks like cooking and eating and walking and all of that kind of stuff, but the way that it felt was so different. I was so disconnected from my body that it was like my body was doing it by itself and my consciousness was like trying to do something totally different, like just float away, and I don't know. So I guess, kind of long story short, that situation went on for a week. It basically was like a on and off panic attack constantly for a whole week. I was just feeling like I was going to die. I was feeling like I was going crazy. I was like wondering how long this would last and if I would ever be able to soothe it to the point where I could have a normal existence again. And what if I couldn't? Like, would it be worth like committing suicide to just alleviate that stress? Because who could live every day of the rest of their life like that? It was really scary. So I talked to my family. I talked to and still am talking to a psychotherapist. I talked to my shamans. I talked to a bunch of friends, specifically one in particular who is a lot more experienced with ayahuasca than I am. And everyone was like really supportive and comforting, and they gave me a lot of tips, or they just gave me whatever I really needed in the moments. Sometimes it was a shoulder to cry on, sometimes it was a hug, sometimes it was just company. But eventually, not even eventually, immediately, I resorted to my spiritual knowledge in order to solidify making the choice that I wanted to make for myself. I don't know for sure what I was experiencing. Based on my research, it looks like what I was experiencing is the phenomenon known as ego death, which is common among people who work with psychedelic medicines, including mushrooms, LSD, and ayahuasca. Ego death is usually it usually happens when you're working with medicine. Of course, it's basically the same thing as nirvana, and nirvana is obviously something that happens through years of intense meditation and clarity of thought. Essentially, it's kind of like um, having your crown chakra opened all the way and experiencing the divine in that way. If we're looking at yoga slash Hinduism, so these phenomenon exist in other ways outside of working with psychedelic medicines, but it's really rare for somebody who has not been meditating for years to experience like that basic ego death without medicine, and I think that's what was happening for me. So, like I said, I'm not sure though, but what I did was I decided to just solidify my choice and make a decision on what I wanted. And I wanted to continue to experience reality in this way, in my body, here on earth. I love the idea of being able to transcend this and explore different dimensions and whatnot. And I really, really like my family. I really, really like my life. And I really, really want to keep living this right now. So my decision was to be here and be more present in the reality that I'm in, because I'm here in this body for a reason, and I want to live it as beautifully as I can possibly live it before I leave. I stuck with that mentality for the entirety of that week. I felt really awful most times. I felt really doubtful most of the time. I felt like I didn't have control over what was going to happen a lot of the time. And literally, things got better and better and better every day, to the point where I went a whole day just feeling like a normal person. I didn't feel completely solidified in myself, but I didn't feel constant state of terror that I had felt for the, about 4 days before that. And even then, on that day where I was like going to bed with ease, like usually I would be going to bed so afraid that if I go to sleep, I might not wake up. And this night I went to bed with such ease and peace. And even in that moment, something crazy still happened. Like I woke up in the middle of the night, and all I saw was bright white light everywhere. I looked down and I saw my brown hands and my brown feet, and I looked up and there was a person in front of me, and I could sense that there was a line of people, like a progression or procession heading towards this light. And I could also feel that there was a count, like maybe an infinite line of people behind me as well. And yeah, like I thought I was walking into the light, you know what I mean? And I had instantly had a panic attack. I pulled myself out of that. I said, no, I'm not walking into the light yet. I don't want that yet. And I woke up into an intense panic attack, and I started like trying to call out to people, and I was trying to wake my mother, and she wouldn't wake up. So I ran to my phone to call my dad, and my phone was just dead and it would not turn on. And I turned it off because it was I kind of wasn't sure about how, the radio waves or whatever was affecting what I was experiencing. So I turned my phone off every night, and I'm trying to turn my phone on to call my dad just to be like, I just need somebody to talk to right now, and my phone isn't turning on. And in that moment where I'm literally just about to completely freak out, I woke up. Like it was all a dream, and it was so intense. So listen, just to sum all of this up, because I'm really getting very much into the details and the story of it right now, but what is really important about this is that I'm trying to explain to you some of the possibilities that are usually not discussed when people are talking about ayahuasca. So often we hear about the beauty of working with the medicine and all of the positive things that it can introduce into your lives, and we kind of even idealize this concept of ego death and crave it, like we seek ego death. I would even go as far to say as we idolize ego death, and we idolize this idea of transcending the human experience for something more, like whatever that is. Like we become discontent in our own lives, and we start seeking more than we are. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like that's the essence of growth. That is how we become more. That's how we attain the things that we want in life, and it's our natural state. It's exactly what we're here to do. And at the same time, there's a balance of growing while remaining present and deeply rooted in the experience of loving ourselves and being ourselves without the escapism of that sometimes comes with like wanting more, and these things show up in all sorts of ways in life, like wanting to become wealthy or wanting to travel all the time. A lot of the time that stuff is rooted in the idea of escaping from the part of our reality that we're not content with. So these things aren't talked about as much, but they are a real risk. It is possible to enter a state of psychosis and other mental health disorder after experiencing, a sitting with ayahuasca. I am not the only person that this kind of thing has happened to. It's happened to multiple people, and the thing about it is it requires significantly more digging to reveal these things than it does to just randomly pop up a great ayahuasca documentary on YouTube that is touting all of the amazing attributes of ayahuasca. I want to be really clear right now because I am thankful for my experience, and I think that what I experienced was necessary for my journey because it taught me a lot of things and it allowed me to be comfortable in, or to begin the process of becoming comfortable and solid in choosing what I want my reality to look like, instead of assuming that reality already exists in some kind of way. Now I see reality as something that I can decide what I want to be, as opposed to something that I am limited in what I can do and what I can have. I now really have this sense that, like the law of attraction, like I really get that on an essential level. And I see how it's not just like, you know, it's